Serena Ford's hands trembled as they hovered just above Do-youn's bare abdomen, her fingers barely grazing the warm skin that disappeared beneath the waistband of his black athletic pants. The therapy room was dim, intimate, filled with nothing but the sound of his breathing and the thundering of her own heartbeat in her ears. "This is crazy," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I could lose my license for this." Do-youn's dark eyes locked onto hers, intense and unwavering. His tattooed torso rose and fell with each controlled breath, the dragon inked across his ribs seeming to move in the low light. "Then stop," he said, his voice low and dangerous, a challenge wrapped in velvet. Her fingers pressed down, finding the sensitive nerve cluster she'd been searching for. "I can't," she admitted, looking up at him through her lashes. He sat up abruptly, his sculpted abs flexing with the movement, bringing his face inches from hers. The heat radiating from his body was intoxicating. "Good," he murmured, his hand coming up to cup her face with surprising gentleness. "Because I'm done pretending I don't want you. I've been trying to stop thinking about you for the past 3 weeks." Before she could respond, before she could think about all the reasons this was wrong, his thumb brushed across her bottom lip and the world tilted on its axis. 3 weeks earlier, Serena had stepped off the plane at Incheon International Airport with exactly 0 expectations of falling for anyone, let alone a tattooed Korean Mafia boss who looked like he could kill someone with a glance. She'd been too busy FaceTiming her best friend Amara, who was currently screaming through the phone about Korean men and their supposed irresistibility. "Girl, you better send me pictures of this Korean zaddy," Amara demanded, her voice carrying through Serena's AirPods. "I know he's fine. They're always fine." Serena rolled her eyes, adjusting the strap of her carry-on as she navigated through the crowded terminal. Her natural curls were pulled into a high puff, and she'd opted for form-fitting black athleisure that showed off the curves she'd worked hard for at the gym. "He's a client, Amara, a rich, emotionally unavailable client who probably hasn't smiled since 2019. And according to his 17 emails trying to cancel, he doesn't even want me there." That's what you said about Marcus, and we both know how that ended," Amara shot back with a knowing laugh. "Marcus was a mistake, a 6-month mistake that taught me to never mix business with pleasure again." Serena spotted her name on a sign held by a stern-looking Korean woman in a black suit. Besides, he specifically requested a male therapist. His mother overruled him and hired me instead. He's going to hate me on sight. Or he's gonna fall in love with you. Either way, I need updates. And the pictures of them abs, if he got any. "You're ridiculous. You love me. Now go make that Korean man walk again, or whatever. Fighting." Amara's attempt at a Korean accent was so terrible that Serena couldn't help but laugh. The woman in black introduced herself as Minseo, and her personality matched her outfit perfectly. Cold, efficient, and completely humorless. During the drive from the airport to Gangnam, Minseo delivered what could only be described as a warning disguised as small talk. "Mr. Kang doesn't want you here," she said bluntly, her eyes never leaving the road as she navigated Seoul's traffic with aggressive precision. Serena wasn't intimidated. She'd grown up in Chicago's South Side with a Korean mother who didn't take nonsense from anyone, and a black father who told her to never back down. "Yeah, I got that from the 17 emails his assistant sent trying to cancel my contract," He made the last therapist cry. She quit after 20 minutes. Well, I don't cry easy, and I flew 6,000 miles, so he's just going to have to deal with me. Serena watched Seoul's glittering skyline pass by the window, all glass and steel and neon lights. I've handled worse than a rich man with an attitude problem. Min Seo's lips twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. You're different from the others. Damn right I am. Diamond Tower Medical looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. The penthouse level, where Mr. Kang apparently resided, was accessible only by private elevator and required 3 different security clearances. The nurses they passed in the corridor moved quickly, their shoulders tense, avoiding eye contact like they were afraid of being noticed. This wasn't a healing place, Serena realized. This was a fortress. One nurse, younger than the others, leaned in as Serena passed. Good luck, she whispered urgently. He's in one of his moods. Serena nodded, but didn't slow down. She'd dealt with difficult patients before. Hell, she dealt with her own father after his stroke, when he'd been so angry at his body's betrayal that he'd pushed away everyone who tried to help. This Mr. Kang, whoever he was, couldn't be worse than that. The double doors to his suite opened soundlessly. The room beyond was cast in shadows, heavy curtains blocking out the afternoon sun. Only the city skyline was visible through a gap in the drapes, so spreading out like a carpet of lights. A man stood at those windows, hands in the pockets of his expensive black slacks, his back to her. Even in silhouette, he was imposing, tall, broad-shouldered, radiating the kind of power that made people instinctively step back. I told my mother I don't want a therapist, he said without turning around. His voice was deep, controlled, and cold enough to frost glass. Serena set her therapy back down with a deliberate thump. The sound echoed in the quiet room. And I told my mother I don't date emotionally unavailable men. But here we are having a conversation with your back. That got his attention. He turned slowly, deliberately, and Serena's breath caught despite her best efforts to remain professional. Kang Do-yeon was beautiful in the way that dangerous things were beautiful. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His black turtleneck did nothing to hide the muscular frame beneath, and she could see the edges of tattoos peeking out from his collar and cuffs. He looked like he could break someone in half without breaking a sweat. You're American, he observed, his tone suggesting this was somehow a personal failing on her part. And you're observant, gold star. Serena crossed her arms, refusing to be intimidated by his stare. She'd learned early in her career that men like this one needed to be met with equal force, or they'd walk all over you. Look, I get it. You didn't ask for me. You're probably thinking, who's this black girl who thinks she can fix me? But here's the thing. She took a step closer. I don't fix people. I help them remember that their bodies know how to heal. The question is, are you going to let me help? Or are you going to keep standing in the dark, feeling sorry for yourself? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. You have no idea what you're talking about. I know you had a car accident on Incheon Bridge 3 years ago. I know you've had 7 surgeries and 15 specialists. I know you can walk, but you've lost sensation from L4 to S1. She ticked the facts off on her fingers, watching his jaw tighten with each one. I know you think you're broken, and I know you're wrong. His hands curled into fists at his sides. And you know this how? Because I've seen your MRIs. I've read every single medical report. Your nerve damage isn't permanent, it's protective. Your body shut down to avoid pain. But pain means you're alive, Mr. Kang, and I can prove it. She took another step forward, bold enough to invade his personal space. 1 hour. Give me 60 minutes. If you don't feel anything different, I'll leave and you never have to see me again. I'll even tell your mother it was my fault. Something flickered in his eyes. Interest, maybe, or curiosity. And if I do feel something, then you owe me an apology for wasting my time with this attitude. The silence stretched between them, charged with a tension that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with the way they were both refusing to look away. Finally, he moved past her toward another door, his shoulder brushing hers for just a moment. The brief contact sent electricity racing down her spine. Fine, 1 hour, he said, without looking back. But when this doesn't work, you leave, and you don't come back. We'll see about that, Serena murmured under her breath, following him into the therapy room. The space was equipped with state-of-the-art equipment that must have cost more than her entire education. Massage table, nerve stimulation devices, even a small infrared sauna in the corner. Everything top of the line. Everything the best money could buy. Doyen stood near the table, watching her with those unsettling dark eyes as she began setting up, warming massage oil between her palms, arranging her tools with practiced efficiency. I need you on the table, she said, not looking at him as she prepared. I don't take orders. In this room, you do. She finally met his gaze. Unless you'd rather stay broken. The word hung between them like a slap. His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle jumping. You don't know anything about me. I know you're scared. I know you've convinced yourself you'll never feel whole again. And I know you're about to take off that turtleneck and show me exactly where it hurts. She patted the table, shirt off, face down. For a long moment, she thought he might refuse, thought he might throw her out and be done with it. But then his hands went to the hem of his turtleneck and he pulled it over his head in one smooth motion. Oh no. Serena had seen countless bodies in her career. Athletes, dancers, actors, regular people. She prided herself on her professionalism, her ability to see past the physical and focus on the work. But Kang Do-in's body made that professionalism extremely difficult to maintain. His shoulders were broad and perfectly sculpted, leading down to a back that looked like it had been carved from marble. A massive dragon tattoo wrapped around his torso, starting at his right shoulder blade and spiraling down his spine, its tail disappearing into the waistband of his pants. But it was the scars that caught her attention. Surgery scars, long and precise, looking, intersecting the tattoo in places, telling the story of his accident and everything that came after. He turned slightly before lying down, and she caught a glimpse of his abs. Six-pack didn't even begin to cover it. Every muscle was defined, his V-line sharp enough to cut, his chest broad and powerful. The dragon's head curved across his ribs, breathing ink fires toward his heart. Something wrong? He asked, catching her staring. She cleared her throat, scrambling to recover her professional composure. Just assessing the scar tissue. Lie down, he complied, settling onto the table face down, and Serena took a moment to steady herself. This was just another patient, just another body to heal. The fact that he looked like he'd stepped out of some fantasy didn't change her job. She warmed the oil again, then hovered her hands over his lower back. This might be uncomfortable at first. Your body's been guarding this area for 3 years. We're going to teach it to trust again. The moment her hands made contact, his entire body went rigid. Every muscle locked up. His breathing stopped, and she could feel the tension vibrating through him like a live wire. "I told you," he said through gritted teeth. "I don't relax." Then today's full of firsts. She applied steady pressure, her hands moving in slow, deliberate circles. "Breathe, Doyeon. You're holding your breath like I'm about to hurt you, aren't you?" "No." Her voice softened despite herself. "Never." Gradually, impossibly, she felt him begin to soften under her touch. His breathing deepened, became more regular. The locked muscles in his back started to release bit by bit as she worked her way along his spine, finding knots and pressure points with the kind of precision that came from years of training and a natural intuition. "When's the last time someone touched you?" she asked quietly, her hands never stopping their movement. "And I don't mean doctors poking and prodding. I mean really touched you, like a person, not a patient." The silence stretched so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then finally, 3 years. 3 years since the accident, or 3 years since someone touched you? Both. Something in her chest tightened at the flatness in his voice. "That's a long time to carry everything alone." "I'm used to it." She found a particularly stubborn note near his hip and pressed down firmly. He made a sound, half pain and half something else. Something that made heat pool low in her belly, despite every professional boundary she'd ever been taught. Used to it doesn't mean you should be. They fell into a rhythm after that, her hands working his body, finding tension and releasing it. His breathing growing deeper, more relaxed. The oil caught the light as she moved, her dark hands against his pale skin, creating patterns that felt almost artistic. She lost herself in the work, in the familiar dance of healing, but couldn't ignore the way awareness crackled between them like static electricity. Every point of contact felt charged, every breath synchronized. The room seemed to shrink around him until there was nothing but her hands and his body, and the intimate silence broken only by their breathing. "I need to work your hip flexors now," she said, her voice slightly rougher than she had intended. "The nerves that control sensation down there originate from your lumbar spine." He tensed again immediately. "Down there? The nerves that connect to everything else, including what you think you've lost." She positioned her hands just above his hips, fingers splayed across the warm skin of his lower abdomen. "This is going to feel intense. Just breathe through it." The moment she applied pressure, his breath hitched audibly. His whole body went rigid again. But this was different. This wasn't a defensive tension. This was reaction. He struggled with the words, his voice strained. "I haven't felt anything here in..." "I know." She kept her pressure steady, hands moving in slow circles that followed the nerve pathways she'd memorized from his medical files. "But your body remembers. It just needs permission to feel again." Her hands moved lower, still professional but charged with an intimacy that went beyond the physical. She could feel his heartbeat under her palms, racing far faster than it should be for someone lying still. Could feel the heat of his skin, the slight tremor in his muscles. "Tell me what you feel," she whispered. Heat, pressure, something like... He paused, searching for words. Like electricity, she smiled, even though he couldn't see it. That's your nerves firing. That's good. That's really good. She pressed down on a specific point, a nerve cluster that connected to everything below, and his entire body arched off the table, not in pain, in sensation, in feeling, in something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. He sat up so abruptly she had to step back. Shirtless, abs on full display, hair disheveled from the massage, he looked at her with an expression that was equal parts shock and wonder. They were inches apart, close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin. I felt something, he said, his voice breaking on the words. Just now. I actually felt. What did you feel? She was supposed to be professional, clinical, but her heart was hammering and her hands were still warm from his skin, and all she could think about was how badly she wanted to touch him again. Everything. He looked down at his hands like they belonged to someone else. For a second I felt everything. They stared at each other, the moment stretching into something dangerous, something that crossed every line she had ever drawn. Finally, she forced herself to step back, to create a distance, to remember why she was here. That's a good start, she managed, proud that her voice came out steady. Same time tomorrow? He was still processing, still looking at her like she'd just performed a miracle. What if it doesn't happen again? She began packing her things, not looking at him because if she did, she might lose what little control she had left. It will. Your body's remembering. It just needs consistency. Finally, she met his eyes. But you have to want it. You have to want to feel again. And if what I want to feel is... He paused, his gaze dropping to her lips before meeting her eyes again. Complicated. She knew exactly what he meant, could feel the same complication burning through her own veins. Then we deal with the complicated. She headed for the door, needing to get out before she did something spectacularly stupid. See you tomorrow, Mr. Kang. It's Doyen, he called after her, still shirtless, still watching her with an intensity that made her skin feel too tight. She paused at the door, looked back over her shoulder. I know what it is. I'll call you Mr. Kang until you earn the first name. The ghost of a smile touched his lips, the first one she'd seen. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous, more human. And how do I do that? Show up tomorrow, put in the work, stop feeling sorry for yourself. She allowed herself a small smile and maybe put a shirt on. It's distracting. She left it before he could respond, but she could feel his eyes on her all the way to the elevator. Back in her small apartment in Itaewon, Serena collapsed onto her couch and immediately called Amara. Her best friend answered on the first ring, her face filling the screen with an expression of barely contained excitement. Girl, you better start talking right now because I've been waiting 6 hours for this call. Serena searched for words that wouldn't sound completely insane. He's a problem. A hot problem? The hottest problem. Like, I'm talking tattoos, abs, this whole dark and brooding thing that should be illegal. She covered her face with her free hand. And Amara, when I touched him, it was like electric. I've worked with hundreds of patients. I've never... Bitch! Amara's screech was loud enough that Serena had to pull the phone away from her ear. You like him? I can't like him. He's my client. Did he feel the electricity too? Serena was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, I think he did. So what you gonna do? My job. Keep it professional. Not catch feelings for a man who probably has a whole fiancé waiting in the wings and definitely has secrets. She grabbed a bottle of water from her coffee table. I'm here for 6 months. I help him heal. I go home. I never think about him again. How's that working out for you? Terribly. Amara laughed, the sound warm and knowing. Just be careful, okay? These rich international men, they play different games than we're used to. I know. I will. I promise. But as Serena lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Doyen's body had felt under her hands, the heat of his skin, the dragon tattoo that seemed to move when he breathed, the raw vulnerability in his voice when he'd said he felt something, the intensity in his eyes when he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. She was in so much trouble. The next morning, Serena arrived at Diamond Tower Medical at exactly 8 a.m., professional and prepared, and absolutely certain she could keep her boundaries intact. That certainty lasted approximately 30 seconds, which was how long it took her to walk into the therapy room and find Doyen already there, waiting for her. He was dressed in black athletic wear that should have been loose, but somehow managed to showcase every line of his body. The sleeveless shirt revealed his tattooed arms in full glory. Dragons and flowers and Korean characters winding around muscle. He stood by the window, but this time he turned when she entered. I've been thinking about yesterday, he said without preamble. Serena set down her bag with what she hoped was casual confidence. Oh yeah? Got thoughts? You were right. I have been feeling sorry for myself, standing in the dark. He moved towards the table, his movements fluid and controlled. I don't want to do that anymore. And now, he sat on the edge of the table, looking up at her. Now I want to see if you can do it again. Make me feel like that. The way he said it, low and intense, sent heat racing through her veins. She cleared her throat. That's why I'm here. The session was different from the start. He was more open, less guarded, and that made everything more dangerous. As her hands worked his shoulders, finding knots and releasing them, he talked, really talked, not just answering her questions, but offering pieces of himself. This is strange, he admitted, his voice slightly muffled by the table. Trusting someone I just met. You don't trust me, she said, working a particularly stubborn knot near his shoulder blade. I trust your hands. She paused, caught off guard by the statement. That might be the most Korean backhanded compliment I've ever received. He turned his head to look at her, and she could see amusement in his eyes. You're black and Korean. Mom's Korean, Dad's black. Born in Chicago, raised on kimchi and soul food. She pressed down hard on a pressure point, and he winced. Does that make you more or less comfortable with me touching you? More? Why? Because you understand both the worlds. The Korean one that says I should hide weakness, and the other one that says vulnerability is strength. His gaze held hers. You know what it's like to exist between things. That observation hit deeper than she'd expected. That's surprisingly insightful for someone who didn't want me here. I'm full of surprises, clearly. As the days passed, the sessions became the highlight of Serena's time in Seoul. Day 3, Day 4, Day 5, each one bringing them closer. The professional boundaries getting blurrier. He started arriving early, started staying late, started looking at her like she was water and he'd been dying of thirst for 3 years. On day 3, he told her about the accident in detail. The rain, the way the car had hydroplaned, the sensation of flipping over and over, his driver's scream cutting off abruptly, the way he'd woken up in a hospital bed, unable to feel his legs, certain his life as he knew it was over. The doctor said I was lucky, he said, his voice flat as she worked his lower back. Lucky to be alive, lucky to walk again, lucky, lucky, lucky. His hands fisted on the table. Didn't feel lucky when I realized what I'd lost, everything that made me feel like a man. Serena's hands stilled for just a moment before resuming their work. You are a man. Nerve damage doesn't change that. Tell that to everyone who looks at me like I'm broken, like I'm less than what I was. I don't look at you like you're broken. He turned his head, met her eyes. I know. That's why this is working. On day 5, the tension between them reached a breaking point. She was working his lower abdomen, her hands following the nerve pathways that led to everything he thought he'd lost, when he suddenly grabbed her wrist. Not hard, not aggressive, but firm enough to stop her movement. Why did you become a therapist? He asked, his thumb resting against her pulse point. The touch was electric, intimate, completely inappropriate, and yet she didn't pull away. My dad had a stroke when I was 16. Doctors said he'd never walk again. But he did. His therapist was this tiny Korean woman named Dr. Park. She was fierce, didn't take no for an answer, wouldn't let him give up even when he wanted to. Serena could still picture Dr. Park, barely 5 feet tall, but commanding a room like a general. She made him walk, gave him his life back. So you wanted to be like her. I wanted to give people their lives back. Same way she gave my dad his. She tried to focus on her work, on the professional distance she needed to maintain, but his hand was still on her wrist, his thumb now tracing small circles against her skin. Noble, he murmured. Practical. I like fixing things. His grip tightened slightly, enough to draw her attention fully to his face. Am I a thing to fix? The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. She was acutely aware of how close they were, of the heat of his skin under her other palm, of the way he was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 3 years. No, she said quietly. You're a person who deserves to feel whole. What if feeling whole means feeling things I shouldn't? His voice dropped lower, intimate in a way that made her breath catch. Like the way my heart races when you walk in, like how I think about your hands even when you're not here, Doyen, like how badly I want to kiss you right now. Serena pulled her hand back, putting distance between them, even though every cell in her body was screaming at her to do the opposite. That's transference. It's common in therapy. Patients often develop feelings for their therapists during treatment. It passes. He sat up in one fluid motion, bringing them face to face. Shirtless, intense, close enough that she could count his eyelashes. Bullshit. This isn't transference. This is me wanting you. Doyen, we can't. You said to earn the first name. I'm putting in the work. He stood, and suddenly she was the one who had to look up at him. I'm showing up. I'm stopping feeling sorry for myself. He moved closer, backing her up until she hit the wall. Not threatening, just present, just there, filling her entire world. What else do I have to do? She pressed her hand against his chest, stopping him, but also feeling his heartbeat racing under her palm. Not this. We can't do this. Why? Because I could lose my license. Because it's unprofessional. Because you feel it too. She closed her eyes, trying to summon strength she didn't have. Yes, I feel it too, but that doesn't mean we act on it. Then when? His forehead dropped to rest against hers, his breath warm against her lips. Tell me when, and I'll wait. I'll wait as long as you need. When you're not my patient anymore, when there's no power dynamic, when I'll find another therapist. You're making progress with me. Changing now could set you back months. Then I'll take months, years, whatever it takes. He pulled back just enough to look at her, his eyes blazing with an intensity that stole her breath. But I'm not pretending I don't want this anymore. I'm not pretending that every time you touch me, it doesn't make me want things I haven't wanted in 3 years. Serena grabbed her back, needing to get out before she did something they both regret. I need to go. I need to think. Think about what? About whether what we're risking is worth what we might lose. She made it to the door before his voice stopped her. Serena. She turned back. I already know my answer. The question is whether you know yours. That night, she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except the way he'd looked at her. The way he touched her, the way every professional boundary she'd ever learned was crumbling under the weight of whatever this was between them. Day 6 brought an unexpected interruption. She was mid-session, working Dorian's shoulders while trying very hard not to think about how the previous day had ended, when the door burst open. A younger man strolled in, handsome and smiling, with an energy that was completely different from Dorian's controlled intensity. This man was all charm and easy confidence, like he'd never met a stranger. Yo, he announced cheerfully, so Mom wants you both for dinner tonight. She's inviting the whole family. He looked between them, and Serena saw the exact moment that he registered the tension in the room. His smile widened. Did I interrupt something? I was just finishing up, Serena said quickly, stepping back from the table and wiping her hands on a towel. Cool. I'm Minho, by the way, the better-looking brother. He winked at Serena. So 7 p.m. at the estate. Mom specifically asked for you, Serena. Said, and I quote, I want to meet the woman who got my son to smile again. Serena blinked. He smiles. Apparently now he does. Minho's grin turned knowing. Wonder why that is? After Minho left, the room felt even smaller than before. Serena busied herself with packing up her equipment, very aware of Dorian watching her. You don't have to go, he said finally. To dinner. My mother can be intense. Do you want me there? He was quiet for so long, she thought he might say no. Then, yes, I want you there. Then I'll be there. She met his eyes. But Dorian, your family is going to have questions. Let them question. He stood, moving closer, but stopping just short of touching her. Unless you're scared. She pulled herself up to her full height, channeling every ounce of confidence her mother had instilled in her. I'm not scared of your family. Good. His smile was small but genuine, because after tonight, things are going to change. What does that mean? It means I'm done hiding what I want, and what I want is you. Serena spent the afternoon in a state of controlled panic. She called Amara, who was absolutely no helper whatsoever. So let me get this straight, Amara said, painting her nails while they video chatted. Fine-ass Korean man wants you. You want him, but you're worried about meeting his family. It's not that simple. He's my client. There are ethics involved. Professional boundaries. Girl, your professional boundaries left the building the second you saw those abs. We both know it. Amara pointed her nail polish brush at the camera. The real question is, are you scared of his family, or are you scared of what it means if this is real? Serena was quiet for a long moment. Both. That's what I thought. Look, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that I've known you for 10 years, and I've never heard you talk about anyone the way you talk about him. So maybe, just maybe, this is worth taking the risk. The Kang family estate in Pyeongchang-dong was everything Serena had expected and nothing she was prepared for. High walls, security that rivaled the White House, and a main house that looked like it had been transplanted from a historical drama. Traditional Korean architecture met modern luxury, all elegant lines and expensive taste. Minho met her at the entrance, his easy smile helping calm some of her nerves. You look great, he said, taking in her black wrap dress and natural curls. Fair warning though, Mom invited some extended family. She wants to show you off. Show me off? Serena's stomach dropped. Why would she show me off? Because you're the first woman Doyen has shown any interest in since the accident. Hell, maybe ever. Minho led her through gardens that probably required a full-time staff. My brother doesn't do relationships, doesn't do feelings. But with you? He glanced at her. With you, he's different. They entered the main house, and Serena was immediately enveloped in warmth and the smell of incredible food. The sitting room was filled with people, all dressed in various states of traditional and modern Korean fashion, all turning to look at her with undisguised curiosity. A woman in an elegant hanbok approached, and Serena knew immediately this was Doyen's mother. She had his eyes, sharp and assessing, but there was warmth there too. Miss Ford, she said in perfect English, only the slightest accent detectable. I'm Lady Kang Seon-hwa. Please come in. My son speaks very highly of your work. Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Kang. Call me Seon-hwa. We're not formal here. She linked her arm through Serena's, steering her into the room. Everyone, this is Serena Ford, Doyen's therapist from America. The room erupted in polite greetings, aunts and uncles and cousins all introducing themselves. Serena smiled and nodded and tried to remember names while her eyes scanned the room for Doyen. She found him by the window, dressed in all black as usual, but somehow he made even traditional Korean evening wear look dangerous. His eyes found hers immediately, and something in his expression softened. He crossed the room in long strides, stopping just close enough that she could feel his warmth. You came. You invited me. I wasn't sure you would. Before she could respond, an older man cleared his throat loudly. Uncle Kang Tae-young, she remembered from introductions. He had a look of someone used to being obeyed, his expensive suit and calculating eyes marking him as family, but also as someone who saw everything as a transaction. Miss Ford, he said, his English heavily accented but clear. What do you think of our Doyen? Is he a good patient? I think he's a dedicated patient who's making excellent progress, Serena said carefully, aware that every word was being weighed and measured. Just a patient? Uncle Tae-young's smile was knowing in a way that made her uncomfortable. My nephew is a very eligible bachelor. Many families have expressed interest in marriage alliances. The words hit like cold water. Marriage alliances, like Doyen was a piece on a chessboard rather than a person. Serena felt him tense beside her. "Uncle," Doyen's voice held a warning. "I'm simply saying the girl should know what she's getting into if she has designs on you." "I have no designs," Serena said firmly, meeting the older man's eyes. "I'm his therapist, that's all." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but she could feel the weight of all those eyes on her, judging, assessing, deciding whether she was worthy or a threat or both. The awkward silence that followed was mercifully broken by Seonghwa, who smoothly redirected the conversation to safer topics, questions about Serena's background, her training, her family. She answered honestly, aware that she was being evaluated with every word, every gesture, every smile. Dinner was a traditional Korean feast, course after course of beautifully prepared dishes. Serena found herself seated between Doyun and his mother, with Minho across from them providing comic relief with his stories and jokes. The food was incredible, but she could barely taste it. Too aware of Doyun's presence beside her, the way his leg occasionally brushed against hers under the table, the way he looked at her when he thought no one was watching. After dinner, as the family migrated to different parts of the house for tea and conversation, Doyen caught her hand. "Come with me," he said quietly. "I want to show you something." He led her through the house and out into the gardens. They walked in silence, the sounds of the party fading behind them, until they reached a secluded corner surrounded by flowering trees. Seoul's skyline glittered in the distance, a carpet of lights stretching to the horizon. "I'm sorry about my uncle," Doyen said, turning to face her. "He's old-fashioned, thinks everything should be a business transaction." "It's fine. I've dealt with worse." Serena hugged herself against the cool evening air. But what did he mean about marriage alliances? People don't really arrange marriages anymore, do they? "In my world, they do." His hand brushed hers as they stood side by side. "Marriage is about power, territory, connections. My mother's been fielding proposals since I was 20. Have you accepted any?" "No. I never wanted to marry someone I don't love." He stopped walking, turned to face her fully. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, the touch sending shivers down her spine. "Until recently, I didn't think I'd ever want to marry at all." Serena's breath caught. "What changed?" "You." His hand cupped her face with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him. "You changed everything. Tell me I'm not alone in feeling this. Tell me you feel it too." She should step back, should maintain her boundaries, should remember all the reasons this was impossible. But looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, the hope, she couldn't lie. "I feel it. God help me. I've been feeling it since that first day." Her hand covered his where it rested against her cheek. "But Doyen, we can't act on it. I'm your therapist. There are rules, standards of practice. Then I'll find another therapist. You're making progress with me. Changing now could set you back months." "I don't care." He moved closer until they were breathing the same air. "I'd rather take longer to heal than lose the chance to be with you. You don't know what you're saying. This feeling, it might just be gratitude or transference. Patients often develop feelings for their therapists during treatment. It's normal and it passes. This won't pass." His other hand found her waist, pulling her closer. "I've had dozens of therapists over 3 years. I never felt anything for any of them. But you, from the moment you walked in and refused to be intimidated, I felt something wake up inside me." "Doyen." His lips crashed into hers, swallowing whatever protest she'd been about to make. For one short moment, she froze. Then her hands fisted in his jacket and she kissed him back with 3 weeks of pent-up tension and denied attraction. His mouth was hot and demanding against hers, one hand tangling in her curls, while the other pulled her flush against him. She could feel every hard plane of his body, could taste him on her tongue, could hear the small sound he made when she nipped at his bottom lip. This was insane, unprofessional, potentially career-ending, and she didn't care. Couldn't make herself care when he was kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against his chest. "This is a terrible idea," she muttered, even as her hands clutched his shirt to keep him close. "The best ones usually are." His arms came around her, holding her tight. "What do we do now?" "I don't know." She pulled back enough to look at him. "I need to think. We both need to think about what this means, what we're willing to risk." "I already know what I'm willing to risk. Everything." His hand cupped her face again, thumb brushing across her swollen lips. "But I'll give you time. Take a few days. Figure out if there's a way to do this that doesn't compromise either of us. And if there isn't, then we decide what matters more." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, achingly tender. "I should get you back before my mother sends a search party." They walked back to the main house in silence, but everything had changed. The air between them was charged with possibility and promise, and the weight of the choice they both knew was coming. Seonghwa found them in the garden entrance. She took one look at their faces and smiled knowingly. "Walk with me, Serena," she said, linking arms with her. It wasn't a request. Doyeon squeezed Serena's hand once before letting go, and she followed his mother to a quiet corner of the garden. "You handled yourself well tonight," Seonghwa said, her English impeccable. "Many women would have cowered under that scrutiny." "I was terrified," Serena admitted, "but you didn't show it. That's what counts." Seonghwa's expression softened. "My son loves you. I've never seen him like this with anyone. So I need to know, do you love him enough to handle what comes with him?" Serena stopped, the words catching in her throat. Did she love him? Could she love him after only 3 weeks? "Yes, I think I do." "Then you should know what you're getting into. My family's business is complicated. We have legitimate enterprises, but we also have other interests that make us powerful, but also make us targets." Seonghwa met her eyes. Being with Doyeon means accepting that world. It means danger. It means always watching your back. "What kind of other interest?" "The kind is better you don't know the details of." "Not yet." Seonghwa patted her hand. "But know this, if you choose my son, we will protect you. You will be family. And family is everything to us." The next few days passed in a blur of confusion and indecision. Serena canceled her sessions with Doyeon, claiming she needed time to arrange for another therapist to take over his care. She researched ethical guidelines, professional boundaries, therapist-patient relationships. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. She needed to transfer his care before pursuing any kind of personal relationship. But finding someone qualified, who she trusted, who understood the complexity of his case, who Doyeon would actually work with, that was proving impossible. She was sitting in a cafe in Itaewon, drowning her confusion in an Americano, when an old colleague appeared. Marcus Chen, a fellow therapist she'd gone to grad school with, was apparently in Seoul for a conference. "Serena Ford," he said with a warm smile, sliding into the seat across from her. "I heard you were working here. How's the mysterious client?" They caught up for a while, the conversation easy and familiar. Eventually, without using names or identifying details, she told him about her dilemma, a patient she was developing feelings for, the ethical complications, the question of whether to continue treatment or transfer his care. Marcus listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. "Here's my take. You're too close to the situation to be objective anymore. Feelings, whether reciprocated or not, compromise your ability to provide impartial care. So I should transfer him? Professionally, yes. Personally?" He leaned forward. "I think you need to ask yourself what you really want. Is this guy worth potentially derailing your career? Because once you cross that line, even if you transfer his care first, people will talk. It could affect your reputation, your ability to get future clients." "I know," Serena said miserably, "but I also can't stop thinking about him." Marcus smiled. "I've known you for 5 years, Serena. I've never seen you like this about anyone. Maybe that means something." They talked for another hour, and Serena felt some clarity emerging. She couldn't keep treating Doyon while having feelings for him. That was non-negotiable. But she could transfer his care, maintain professional distance for a cooling-off period, and then see what developed. She was so lost in thought, planning her next steps, that she didn't notice the man who'd entered the cafe until Marcus said, "Friend of yours?" Serena looked up and felt her heart stop. Doyon stood 10 feet away, dressed in an immaculate black suit that probably cost more than her rent. His hair was styled back from his face, and he looked every inch the powerful, dangerous man people whispered about. But his eyes were locked on her with an intensity that made her skin heat. "Doyon," she stood automatically. "I didn't expect to see you here. I own the hotel." His gaze cut to Marcus, cold and assessing. "I see you're having a nice time." The temperature in the cafe seemed to drop. Serena scrambled to diffuse the tension. "This is Marcus Chen. We went to grad school together. Marcus, this is Kang Doyon, one of my clients." Marcus extended his hand with friendly ignorance of the danger crackling in the air. "Nice to meet you, man. Serena's told me about her work here. Sounds fascinating." Doyon shook his hand. But Serena saw the deliberate pressure in his grip, the subtle flags of dominance. "Has she?" His eyebrow quirked. "I wasn't aware my treatment was dinner conversation." "It's not," Serena said quickly. "I never discuss client details. Marcus just knows I'm working with someone." "Someone important, apparently." Marcus grinned, oblivious. "We've been trying to sync schedules for months. Finally got her to sit still long enough to catch up." "How fortunate." Doyon's jaw was tight. "Enjoy your evening." He turned and walked away before Serena could say anything else. She watched him cross the cafe, every woman's head turning as he passed, and felt something twist in her chest. That was jealousy she'd seen in his eyes, raw and barely controlled. After Marcus left, Serena walked back to her apartment, her mind racing. She needed to talk to Doyon, needed to explain, needed to figure out what they were doing before everything exploded. She was half a block from her building when someone stepped out of an alley. A young Korean man, probably early 20s, with hard eyes and an aggressive posture that made alarm bells ring in her head. "You're the woman treating Kang Doyon," he said. Not a question. Serena's heart kicked into overdrive. Excuse me, I don't know what you're talking about. She tried to walk past him, but he blocked her path. He's made himself weak, letting a woman like you touch him. Some people think that's a problem. I don't know what you mean. Please let me pass. His smile was nasty, mean. You should go back to America before something bad happens. Seoul can be dangerous for foreigners who don't know their place. He stepped closer, and she could smell cigarettes on his breath. Think about it. He disappeared into the crowd before Serena could respond, before she could process what had just happened. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, hands shaking, trying to understand. Someone had just threatened her because of Doyin, because of whatever he was into. She made it to her apartment, locked the doors, and pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. Doyin answered on the first ring. I don't think our session is until next week, he said, and she could hear the jealousy still simmering in his voice. Or were you wanting to call your companion to let him know you got home safe? Doyin, can we not do this right now? Her voice shook despite her best efforts. Marcus was just a friend from school. That's not why I'm calling. Then why are you calling? Someone threatened me just now while I was walking home. A young guy, Korean, said I should go back to America before something bad happens. Said you've made yourself weak by letting me touch you. Her words came faster, panic bleeding through. Doyin, what's going on? What are you involved in? Why would someone threaten me? The silence on the other end was deafening. Then she heard him moving, heard sharp Korean being barked at someone in the background. Where are you? Are you home? Yes, I'm at my apartment in Itaewon. Stay on the phone. I'm sending Minseo to get you. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't open the door for anyone except her. His voice was different now, harder, colder. This was the man people feared. Do you understand me? You're scaring me. I'm sorry this is happening. I'll explain everything when you get here. Just stay safe until then. Minseo arrived in less than 5 minutes, which meant she had already been close. The drive to Doyun's penthouse was tense and silent. Minseo's mouth set in a grim line as she navigated Seoul's traffic with aggressive precision. They didn't go to the hospital or the family estate. Instead, they pulled into an underground garage beneath a gleaming high-rise in Hanam-dong. Where are we? Serena asked as Minseo led her to a private elevator. Mr. Kang's private residence. You'll be safe here. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that took Serena's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Seoul, the city spreading out like a sea of lights. The decor was minimalist and expensive, all clean lines and dark colors. And standing at those windows, hands in his pockets, tension visible in every line of his body, was Doyin. He turned when the elevator opened, and Serena saw something flash across his face. Relief, maybe, or fear that he'd been too late. Tell me exactly what happened, he said, crossing to her in 3 long strides. Every word he said, every detail you remember. Serena recounted the encounter, watching his expression grow colder with each sentence. When she finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking rapid Korean. She caught words here and there, her mother's language coming back in fragments, but he was talking too fast. He hung up and finally looked at her, really looked at her. Are you hurt? No. Just scared. He pulled her into his arms then, holding her tight enough that she could feel his heart racing against her cheek. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry this happened to you. "Do-yoon, what's going on? Why would someone threaten me about treating you?" He pulled back, moved to his bar, and poured whiskey with hands that shook slightly. "Because of what I am, what my family does." He downed the whiskey, poured another. "My family controls significant operations in Seoul's underground economy. Pharmaceuticals mostly, expensive medical supplies that come in through private channels. We also own nightclubs, hotels, construction companies. The legitimate businesses fund the rest." Serena sank onto his couch. "You're a crime boss?" His smile was bitter. "I prefer businessmen with flexible ethics. But yes, essentially." "And the threat?" "Probably from a rival faction. Someone who thinks my involvement with you makes me vulnerable." He sat beside her, not quite touching. "In my world, caring about anything is seen as weakness. People look for leverage, for ways to manipulate or control. So by treating you, by getting close to you, I became a target." "Yes." He finally met her eyes. "I should let you go back to America. That would be the smart thing, the safe thing." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "But I don't want you to go. Do-yoon, I know that's selfish. I know I should let you leave, let you be safe. But the thought of you getting on a plane, of never seeing you again," his hands fisted on his thighs, "it makes me want to destroy things." Serena thought about everything she'd learned in the past hour. The danger, the complications, the fact that she barely knew this world he occupied. Then she thought about the way he looked at her, the careful gentleness of his touch, the vulnerability he showed only to her. "I'm falling in love with you," she said quietly. The words felt too big, too soon, but also completely true. "I've been trying not to, trying to maintain boundaries, but I can't stop feeling it." He turned to her so fast she barely saw him move. "Say that again." "I love you." Her voice was stronger now, more certain. "I didn't mean for it to happen this fast, but I do. I love you." He pulled her into his lap, his arms bending around her like he was afraid she might disappear. "I love you too. God, I love you so much." His forehead pressed against hers. "Stay with me. Let me keep you safe." "Safe from what exactly?" "From whoever's threatening you. From rival factions who might see you as leverage. From anyone who thinks they can use you to get to me." He pulled back enough to look at her. "I won't lie. Being with me means danger. But I swear I'll protect you with everything I have." "For how long? A week? A month? Am I supposed to hide forever?" "No, I'm going to end this. Tonight." His jaw set in a way that made him look dangerous. "I'm calling a meeting. Every major family, every faction. I'm making it clear that you're under my protection, that touching you means war." "That sounds insane." "Welcome to my world." He kissed her forehead. "But I promise you, after tonight, you'll be safe. No one will touch you." The meeting was set for midnight at a neutral location. Do-yoon wanted Serena to stay at the penthouse, but she refused. "This is about me," she argued. "I should be there. It's too dangerous. Then make it safe. We're partners, remember?" She crossed her arms, channeling every ounce of Chicago stubbornness she possessed. "Equal partners. That means I get a say." He looked like he wanted to argue. Then his expression softened slightly. "Fine, but you stay by my side the entire time, and if things get violent, you leave immediately. No arguments. Deal." The meeting location was a private room in one of Do-yoon's hotels. When they arrived, the space was already filling with dangerous-looking men in expensive suits. Serena recognized some faces from the family dinner, but many were new. Seonghwa was there, elegant and composed, nodding approvingly when she saw Serena hadn't hidden. The Lee family patriarch arrived last, flanked by his son and several guards. He was in his 60s, silver-haired and distinguished, with eyes that missed nothing. Doyen stood, and the room fell silent. Serena had never seen him like this, commanding, powerful, every inch the leader. I called this meeting because the Lee family has overstepped. They've threatened someone under my protection, someone I love, that cannot stand. Lee's expression was unreadable. Your woman is not our concern. She is now. I'm making her everyone's concern. Doyen's hand found Serena's, pulling her to stand beside him. Serena Ford is to be treated as family, my family. Any threat against her is a threat against the Kang organization. Any harm that comes to her will be answered with total war. Murmurs rippled through the room. Serena felt dozens of eyes on her, assessing, calculating. She lifted her chin and met their gazes steadily, refusing to show fear. You would risk everything for a foreigner? Lee's voice dripped with disdain. I would burn Seoul to the ground for her. Doyen's voice was absolute. I'm making it clear right now, in front of everyone, she's off limits, untouchable. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. The silence was heavy. Then Seonghwa spoke. The Kang family stands behind my son's declaration. Serena Ford is under our protection. One by one, other families voiced their agreement. It was political theater, Serena realized. They were agreeing because opposing the Kang family was bad for business. Lee was the last to speak. The Lee family has no interest in your woman. But we expect the same courtesy. Our business dealings remain our own. Agreed. As long as those dealings don't involve threatening what's mine. Tension stretched like a wire. Then Lee nodded once, sharply. After the meeting, Seonghwa pulled Serena aside. You handled yourself well tonight. Many would have cowered. I was terrified. But you didn't show it. That's what counts. Her expression softened. My son loves you. I've never seen him like this. So I need to know. Do you love him enough to handle what comes with him? Yes, Serena said, without hesitation. I love him. All of him, including the parts that scare me. Good. Because this life isn't easy. There will always be threats. People trying to use you against him. You'll need to be strong. I can be strong. Seonghwa took her hand. Welcome to the family, Serena. Officially. That night, back at the penthouse, Doyen stood at the windows again, staring out at Seoul. Serena found him there, his shoulders tense. Hey, she said softly. You okay? I put a target on your back tonight, made you visible to everyone in my world. His voice was heavy with guilt. I keep thinking maybe I should let you go. Let you be safe. Stop. She moved to stand in front of him, forcing him to look at her. You don't get to make that choice for me. I chose this. I chose you. You deserve better than this life. I deserve to make my own choices, and I choose you. She took his hands. Every day, I choose you. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was precious. I don't deserve you. Good thing I don't care about what you deserve. I care about what I want. She pulled back to look at him. And I want you forever if you'll have me. Forever, he repeated, and something in his voice made her heart skip. Is that a promise? It's a promise. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and Serena felt complete. They had time for him to continue healing, time for her to transition his care to another therapist, Time to build something real. 3 months later, Serena stood in Doyun's penthouse wearing one of his shirts, watching the sunrise paint Seoul in shades of gold and pink. She'd officially transferred his care to another therapist, a stern woman who Doyun complained about constantly, but who was getting results. His sensation had returned almost completely, the nerve pathways she'd awakened continuing to heal. She felt his arms come around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about? How 3 months ago I thought you were the most frustrating patient I'd ever met. And now you're the most frustrating boyfriend I've ever had." She turned in his arms, smiling. "But you're mine, completely yours." He kissed her softly. "I have something for you." He pulled out a small box and Serena's heart stopped. "Doyun, it's not what you think, not yet." He opened it to reveal a delicate necklace, a small dragon pendant that matched his tattoo. "In my family, this means you're protected, that you belong with us. It's beautiful." He fastened it around her neck, his fingers lingering on her skin. "There's something else. I've been working with my mother. We're launching a foundation, legitimate, using our resources to fund nerve damage research. Help accident victims who can't afford treatment. I want to do something good, be someone worthy of you." Serena felt tears prick her eyes. "You already are. You proved I wasn't broken," he said softly. "Now I get to spend the rest of my life proving you weren't wrong." 6 months after that, Serena stood in a beautiful hall decorated in both Korean and the Western styles, wearing a dress that made her feel like a princess. On one side, her parents, her father walking without a cane, strong and healthy. On the other, the Kang family, Seonhwa crying softly, Minho grinning. And at the end of the aisle, Doyun waited, tattooed and dangerous, and hers. When she reached him, he took her hands, and she saw everything in his eyes. Love, gratitude, forever. "I love you," he whispered as they said their vows. "I love you too," she whispered back. "You were never broken. You were just waiting for someone to prove it." They kissed as husband and wife, and Serena thought about that first day. The way he'd stood in the shadows, convinced he'd lost everything. The way her hands had found the path back to healing. The way they'd both been brave enough to risk everything for this. It hadn't been easy. There were still threats, still dangers, still moments when his world collided with hers in uncomfortable ways. But they faced it together, partners, equals, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to step into the light. Later, at the reception, Amara pulled her aside. "Girl, I told you that Korean man was gonna fall in love with you." Serena laughed, watching Doyun across the room, his eyes finding hers like they always did. "You were right, as usual. So was it worth it? All the drama and danger and complications." Serena looked at her husband, at the man who'd been broken and learned to fail again, who'd been dangerous and learned to be gentle, who'd been alone and learned to love. Every single second. That night, alone in their suite, Doyun pulled her close. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For seeing past what I thought I was to who I could be. For loving me. Thank you for letting me in. For trusting me enough to be vulnerable. For choosing me." They fell asleep tangled together, and Serena dreamed of their future, of the foundation they'd built together, helping others the way she'd helped him, of the family they might have someday, of growing old together. still choosing each other every single day. She'd flown to Seoul expecting a job. She'd found her home, her partner, her forever. And it all started with a man who thought he was broken and a woman brave enough to prove he was wrong.